El Segundo, we are opening the regularly scheduled open meeting as well as a special meeting. We'll call to order. We will have the invocation led by Pastor George Lopez of the Bridge. Is Pastor here? No? Okay. Plan B. While the clerk is pulling that up, we'll also have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Pro Tem Pershtuk. All please rise and we could read the invocation, Madam Clerk.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we meet here tonight, we ask your divine assistance in conducting the affairs of this community. Please grant the leaders of our community the insight and courage to serve the citizens of El Segundo. Guide our elected officials in making decisions that affect our community, ensuring the continued growth and prosperity for El Segundo. Amen.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have a couple presentations this evening. Just as a note, Councilman Chris Pimentel is on the line right here. He'll be participating via phone. And the first presentation, we have Police Chief Whalen to introduce new El Segundo police officers. Always excited to hear about that.
All right, good evening, Mayor, council members. Yes, this is an exciting evening to introduce three of our newest police officers. And actually, quite honestly, two of them have been on the books for a while, so when I'm in this venue talking about numbers and that we have, even though they spent the last 6 months of their lives having a great time out at the police academy, they were technically on our roster. However, when I introduce Officer Sanchez over here, you'll see that he is a new addition to our numbers. But starting on my far left, we have Officer Oscar Haro. Officer Haro came from Da Vinci High School. He's a Da Vinci graduate. Really? Yep. So, and actually we have all these guys are local, which is kind of great to get South Bay local folks in here. But so Oscar graduated Da Vinci High School, and then he went on to Cal State Dominguez Hills where he got a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and he is an avid baseball fan. So as we move down the line, you're going to see a sports theme going on here, and you're going to see one particular sport that's going to make the fire chief cringe a little bit back there. But I'm just throwing this out right now that in case the fire department wants to switch to softball, we're stacking the deck. So might have to find another sport to switch to. Zachary Contreras is to my immediate left. What? No?
No, I said hi.
Oh, I thought you said no. And I'm like, oh, no. Zach went to Gardena High School, so another South Bay local. And he played baseball and received a scholarship to Upper Iowa University. And in his spare time, he likes being outside, mostly in the outdoors, hiking, fishing, or anything related to the outdoors. And now I'm transitioning to Officer Anthony Sanchez over here. This is a remarkable event. Not that they're not all three remarkable. However, Officer Sanchez is our first true lateral police officer since 2011. And I submit to you, I believe this is a product of the support that you have shown us over the last year in coming up with a marketing plan and the lateral hiring bonus and stuff. And so Officer Sanchez is the first to take advantage of that. He also grew up locally in Inglewood. He went up to Oregon to go to school, and he played basketball in college. Semi-pro too, right? I mean, I'm not saying anything here, but... And believe me, I'm not just looking for athletes to hire either, so... But after school, and well, actually while at school, is where Officer Sanchez met one of our other police officers, and that friendship is what helped to bring him back here to El Segundo. However, after school, he went down to the San Diego Police Department, and he's been there for about the last 4.5 years. But because of his skills and abilities, he was selected after the first couple years to go to a highly prestigious crime task force in one of the busiest areas of San Diego. So he brings a lot to the table when he comes here, and we're looking forward to him getting out there and getting in service right away after he finishes the field training program, which he has just started. Super excited to be with us. He got a BS degree in political science while he was up in Oregon, and his hobby, is basketball. So with that, our three newest additions to the El Segundo Police Department.
exciting. I shall keep in touch. It happened quickly.
Thanks again, Chief. Great news regarding the first lateral hire. Exciting stuff. All right, we have the presentation of the Treasury quarterly report. Krista Binder, our elected official, treasurer, and Dino, I'm sure. Right? Yes, great.
Great. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members. City Treasurer's Office presentation of our investment report ending for the quarter of March 2019, and then we'll also update you on some of our current activities. So this is our current list of investments by cost and yield and weighted average maturity. So total invested right now is $84 million at about a 2.33 yield. Total city cash is, with cash and bank, is about $90.6 million, so you'll see on the chart. This is our interest income received for the quarter. So based on an average total invested of about $78.9 million, we received interest in the amount of $461,000 plus for the quarter. Show this slide because it's part of our investment policy. So we are still in compliance, obviously, with our permitted investments and the maximum amount that we can invest per investment type. This is a further breakdown of our corporate securities, which show that we are above investment grade, which for our governmental entities under the state code is an A or above. And then the next slide I always want to show is sort of our commitment to a continuing education. So Dino and I attended the Government Investment Officers Association annual conference in March, and then Dino and I also attended the California Municipal Treasurers Association annual conference in April. So we got a significant number of our continuing education requirements, way exceeding the maximum that we have included in the policy. This is our commitment to diversification of our investments for the city of El Segundo and how we are spread about the different investment types. And this is the ladder. So Dino's going to talk a little bit later on about kind of the economic indicators and what they mean. Over the last week and a half, we have been making a lot of investments. The economic indicators are trending down. You'll note with what's happening with the Trump administration in China and Mexico and the market reaction. So we continue to invest as out on the ladder, up to 5 years. Our commitment is to maintaining that ladder and investing to our cash flows. We don't play the market, but we have to commit to the program that we have in place. And what this does is sort of evens out impacts from these types of fluctuations in the market. So, but we'll get into that a little bit more. And this is sort of the yield curve, which we've been tracking. So the green line is as of today. So 6 months ago, we've dropped over, I want to say 51, like 62 basis points. This huge drop. It's come rapidly. We were predicting a slowdown to the economy, but now we're seeing a lot of indications where the Fed was going to maintain rates. Now we're looking at a rate cut in September. Now they're looking at 2 rate cuts, one in September, one in December. So the economy or the market is reacting to a slowing down of the economy. And we can talk more about that. Go on. And then this is sort of how we track the yield curves over a longer period of time. And you can see sort of back in 2016, a rising yield curve. And now you can see the red line, sort of the dropping of the yield curve. So these are sort of some of the indicators that perhaps, I'm going to say economic slowdown, others will say recession, but it's looking, it's moving that right direction. And you can all see it in the papers you read and the news that you see. So, here's another different way of presenting the yield curve drop over that same time period. So now I'm going to hand off the presentation to Dino, and he can talk about sort of what we've been doing investing-wise over the last quarter and the current activity, and then he can also update you on some of those economic indicators. And then we can entertain questions about kind of some stuff that we've learned over the last few months, especially going to these conferences.
Thank you, Krista. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Yeah, so you've seen this slide before, and you can see here how the yield curve dropped in the last quarter, but we made a lot of investments out 4 and 5 years that had a pretty good return. Now, a lot of those were CDs. CDs haven't dropped anywhere near as much as bonds have, so we've picked up as many as we can. Matter of fact, later on I'll tell you where we are with that. But the CDs really helped us pick up a little bit of yield and still keep within diversification and within our limits. You know, cash flow wise, you can see we've had a very good last couple of months as we, or first quarter, I'm sorry, second fiscal quarter, with all the business license revenue and the Chevron payment coming in. But they can also see going forward, June will be a little negative. July, we will be spending an awful lot of money. That's when our CalPERS and our insurance are due. Those two alone, probably close to $11 million. So we've been building our ladder towards that and saving some of the money in camp and LAIF in anticipation of paying those bills. And this just shows you the same, how it's historically been the same. You can see July, for both the last 2 years, was 10 million negative, and that's basically due to that. So the activity. So during the first quarter, we didn't have a lot of activity. I mean, we purchased a few $1 million, but we did have 3 bonds get called back then for 1.5 million. So that was kind of a precursor to the rates dropping. Since March 31st, you can see we purchased 17 CDs, $4 million, diversified out into municipal bonds, a few corporates, into Supra. And we just had a little bit of maturities during that time frame. One quick second. So that brought us up. CDs, as of today, in addition to this here, today we invested $3 million into 5-year bonds and another $735,000 in 4 and 5 year CDs. So we now have 89 CDs for $21,760,000, which is about 22% of our portfolio. Max per policy is 30%, so we still have a bit of room. We've been trying to invest mostly in bullets, which may give a little bit lower yield, but with the decreasing rates, if you buy callables, there's a good chance they could be called in 6 months or a year, and then you have to reinvest at a lower rate, which is, as Krista mentioned, that's why, even though it seems counter that short-term rates are higher, we're still investing out, building our ladder to protect the city as rates potentially drop. There's an 86% chance of a 25 to 50% drop or basis point drop in September, and another 25 basis points in December. So right now things are a little confusing. And you can see just GDP, they've expected it to slow down. We'll have to see what in June what the new reports come out as. Unemployment, of course, is still very low, which is great. And inflation, it's a little bit below the 2%. We'll see the tariffs could have an effect on that, maybe increase inflation a little bit, but it's still very low and under control. But this would be the most interesting to see what the change is next quarter. You can see from December to March, the projection for the Fed funds rate going out 2019, 2021 decreased quite a bit. I'm guessing in later this month when they meet, they'll put out a new dot plot and projections, and that red line next quarter could drop to negative. They could be, by 2019, it could be down to 2% or less. It'll be very interesting to see what they say. But right now the market is pricing in those rate cuts, so we're investing to get our money invested out there before the rate cuts and protect the city from that. And are there any questions?
Did you say 89 CDs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you use the term investing in bullets. What does bullets mean?
So a bullet means it's, you can own it until it won't pay out until maturity. So I buy it now.
As the investor, you have confidence guaranteed that the borrower won't ask for their investment back. That's what it means to be callable. So we use the term bullet, it's kind of a colloquial or market term, to mean an investment that you buy that is fixed until maturity. Okay. So it's a protection. CDs come both ways, but mostly, right now we're seeing more callable CDs because people, if rates drop and you are borrowing, you want to reinvest, get a lower borrowing rate, right? So as an investor, you want to maintain that rate. You don't want to have to get a return on your investment and then have a lower potential for investing when that becomes callable. I hope that explains that.
Thank you.
No, was that it?
Yep, that was it.
Excellent.
I wasn't going to scare you with talking about the national deficit or trade wars.
I did
or
notice
anything
that the
like
markets rallied today. I don't know if that was the Fed's news. or
Stocks,
what.
but bonds. We can only invest in fixed income,
Oh,
so
that's
bonds.
right. Stocks, that's right.
Yeah,
Equities,
bonds.
too bad we can't participate in that. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Well done. Thank you very much, Krista and Dino. Appreciate it. Okay, now is a roll call, actually.
Councilmember Nickel,
Here.
Councilmember Pimentel,
Here.
Councilmember Brand,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tempore Stuck. Here. And Mayor Boyles.
Here, thank you. All right, now's the time and place for public communications. A reminder, 5-minute limit per person, please.
Good evening, Mayor Boyles, members of the council, Dr. Melissa Moore, Superintendent of Schools for El Segundo Unified School District, along with Melissa McCaverty, our PTA Council President. And we're here this evening to express our support for consent item 6, consideration and possible action to approve an adjustment to the fee waiver scorecard. We had the express pleasure of meeting with Meredith Pettit to review the current run in its form and recalculate the scorecard, and we came out with something that we feel was fair for both parties, and the new scorecard calculates the run at a 75% fee waiver. And so we would appreciate your support this evening, and thank you for your time.
Thank you both. All right, that looks to be it for public comments. Any city council comments? Okay, moving on to item A, consideration of a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Chris, are you in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0. All right, we're going to, let's see here. We're going to, be all right to do the special order item now? Or would you rather I do? Yeah, okay. We're going to move on to, thank you, special order C, unfinished business, which is item 1, consideration and possible action regarding 1, adoption of an urgency ordinance approving an amendment to the contract between the Board of Administration, California Public Employees Retirement System, and the City Council of El Segundo relating to the El Segundo Police Officers Association, POA, and the El Segundo Firefighters Association, FFA, respectively, and 2, adoption of ordinance number 1581, approving the amendment. Fiscal impact, none, as this item completes final actions on POA and FFA MOU changes. So, Greg.
Just to clarify, this is the item on the special agenda.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
This was the item that replaces in whole or in part of the item F9 on the regular agenda.
Great. Which is on the consent agenda, so we have nothing further to do. Is that correct?
No, there's action to take, and
Okay,
perhaps it's
great.
best to have David Serrano explain the two items.
All right, Mr. Serrano, please, thank you.
Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, good evening. So as mentioned, this item is to adopt an ordinance, do a second reading on the ordinance that was previously adopted in February, and that will finally fulfill the contract amendment with the POA and the Firefighters Association for their additional 3% PERS pickup for the total of 12%. All of the attachments and the PERS contracts are in your agenda for your review as well. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
And David, just for clarification, are there any items, are all of the items on the special agenda replacing all of item F9?
I apologize.
Is there still the need to have F9 on the consent calendar?
Oh,
Is this
I'm sorry,
entirely
no.
replace?
No, it can be entirely replaced from the consent calendar. Yes, so F9 and consent calendar would be deleted.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Serrano? So we need a motion to adopt, or do you read?
The first one is an urgency ordinance, which requires 4/5 approval by the council. It's an urgency ordinance adopted in accordance with Government Code Section 36937B, approving an amendment to the contract between the City Council of the City of El Segundo and the Board of Administration of the California Public Employees Retirement System. It's ready for adoption.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, Chris.
Next is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of El Segundo authorizing an amendment to the contract between the City Council of the City of El Segundo and the Board of Administration of the California Public Employees Retirement System, and this is also ready for adoption. This was introduced a number of months ago.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0 on both.
So that then will take care of the special council agenda item, and also there will be no need to take action on F9 on the regular agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Hensley. Thank you, Mr. Serrano. Okay, under D, reports of committees, commissions, and boards. 1, consideration on possible action to announce the appointment to the Planning Commission. And we have good news there. I don't think Carol's here, but I know we made an effort to contact applicants in advance, and that's been done, right? Carol Wingate will be back on the Planning Commission, and we want to thank her for her continued service. Okay, under new business, E3, consideration and possible action to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 2 Garbage and Rubbish of Title 5 of the El Segundo Municipal Code in its entirety in order to meet current state mandated requirements. Fiscal impact NA. Because I have a business in this industry, I will recuse myself and turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem.
No. Got it.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem, Ken Berkman, our Director of Public Works, will introduce this item. Our city attorney has some additional changes that he would like to read into the record as well.
Thank you, Greg. Honorable Council, simply this is a ordinance that's a critical step in achieving further compliance with Cal Recycle's rules and regulations. As you know, earlier in the year, the city was placed on a compliance order, and we achieved the goal of producing a very good green waste recycling program now, with automated curbside pickup for our residents. There are 3 parts to this ordinance. That the AB 1826, the organics program, was already approved by council a couple of years ago, so that is unchanged. The 2 changes that needed to be addressed here were the basically creating a permit system for our commercial properties, collections, which are the our residential is the single family homes and the duplexes. So anything greater than that falls under the commercial and the multi-unit. So we have very specific regulations. Basically how to handle trash, who can do it, the permit system, and allows us to provide for monitoring and education and enforcement actions to be placed upon the haulers for their ensure their compliance with the programs. The third part, to kind of update our residential recycling, our solid waste collection and disposal program. Now that we have the exclusive franchise, includes basically an update of those rules and regulations for all residential, and also includes a possible both the commercial and the residential have exemptions, and the city attorney is going to speak a little bit to that and add a few things to that. But it's a needed update for our overall solid waste program, and that is what is before us tonight. So, Mark, if you have things to add.
There were, under the exemptions for the self-haul permit, a couple of items to add as I was reviewing that, and that would be, these are on page 9. There's at the bottom, it currently has 12 enumerated exemptions, and these 2 exemptions would be added. Large, bulky, or heavy items that are not of a type that the city's franchise provider either does, are not of the type the city's franchise provider hauls at all or on a regular or as a regular part of its business. The next one is removal of large amounts of solid waste to address health and safety concerns such as hoarding. And those would also be added under as exemptions to the commercial and the multifamily zone, with the language on the first exemption being slightly different, and it would read large, bulky, or heavy items that are not customarily generated by the business or tenant. And that was just to capture a few more items that, again, wouldn't require a special permit.
So that concludes our report. We're here for any questions.
So just real quick, you said that for any bulky items that are not part of the current business practice of the commercial entity that's...
In the residential area, there is quarterly, there's a limitation on bulky items, not only time-wise, but the number of items, number of times, and also there are things they just won't pick up. So, you know, if this is not part of their regular business, there are times where people need more stuff picked up than 4 times a year, or things that the hauler just won't pick up.
Okay.
So.
I
Any
guess
questions? Go ahead.
kind of a question, I guess. So there's many apartment buildings, townhouses, triplexes, fourplexes, whatever right now that are either currently contracting with EDCO or contracting with Waste Management, something like that, and they are they're recycling, they're doing organics, they're doing all that. Are we essentially saying for all those who have been playing by the rules all along that we're adding a new permitting program for them to do that? I guess I just want to, the simple question, most direct question is, it's usually those who are following the rules that get, I guess, dinged. And is that what we're doing here? Is there someone sitting at home watching this saying, great, I've been following the rules, and now you're just going to add this permit fee for me to do what I'm already doing?
It's not.
No, that the purpose is to address the Cal Recycle demand on the city. Even though the city is well above its the rate that it needs to hit as far as its diversion rate, Cal Recycle's position now is that it's not enough that you're hitting the overall target. We are now setting targets to help your overall target number go higher, even though we're in compliance. And their way of doing that is requiring that all of the haulers now have to keep track of and provide us with records of what's being diverted from those types of businesses and residential units that you're describing. So.
Thanks, Mark. Also, the bottom line is this is a permit system for the haulers. as opposed to a permit system for the
Okay.
commercial property owners. Property owners that are doing things the right way and in compliance, they're not going to be dinged for this. To the contrary, if their hauler, who is not providing the reports and doing things the right way, this gives us the enforcement arm to make sure they are doing things the right way. And to get started, we have a 22 or so licensed commercial haulers. We would expect with this, once we notify them, we're going to have a permit system going into effect January 1st. There are probably folks who are going to say, well, I don't do enough business here, and there's a lot of work to be done, just like our major haulers have to do all the quarterly reporting and things that the city attorney mentioned. So it's really a enforcement arm on the haulers.
But we're not looking to set up a franchise for those units, like we have for the single family, the R1 and the R2.
Good question. Thank you. We are, actually. And part of the process, which we've worked, Public Works has worked with the city attorney's office, we will be mailing later this week a 5-year notice of intent to franchise our commercial hauling. And that gives 5 years down the road, we have to give this notice per state law, the opportunity for the city to put out an RFP for a commercial. So that is a ultimate goal in the end. This is a good kind of intermediate goal to give us a enforcement arm over them.
So the potential fallout, the only potential fallout from this tonight and any action we take with this tonight would be that some people may be upset come January 1 that the trash company they've worked with for so many years is no longer their trash company because that trash company no longer wants to work in El Segundo?
That could be true, yes.
Okay. I just preparing ourselves. It's all those little simple things that, come back our way.
Right.
I don't have any questions, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, the other question I have is, so are we going to help, as we send this out and we get notification that these companies are not going to be permitting with us, are we going to be working with the residents and the commercial properties to help them identify a new hauler so that we can try to help navigate them through the change?
We already have a list of licensed haulers, so as we send out our outreach letters that this ordinance is now in place, probably require them to get back to us as to whether or not they are going to pursue a permit with us, and do our best to get their customer lists. I guess we can do that. Otherwise, we don't have an audited list provided to us. It's part of the reason for the permit system, really, to find out exactly who is using which hauler that's licensed in our city. So we would certainly do our best to get that information to the property owners and tenants.
And what's the rate that we're going to put on this permit? Like, how much is the permit going to cost?
We'll be coming back to council for fee resolutions related to this new ordinance in the coming months.
I do have another question, Carol.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Spoke a little too soon. Because there's no franchise in place, we cannot limit the days the trash is picked up on any of these units, correct?
Right. They set up their service with the property owners.
So in this report I did read, you said we have 20 different trash haulers, 22 different trash haulers?
Yeah, at this time it could be even 24, but 22 is the number.
And they can pick up that trash any day between Monday and Friday? Or
Right. A lot of them are smaller firms that do construction and demolition waste related to tenant improvement work, things like that.
Now, in the end, now I'm going to talk about trash franchise. 5 years from now, will it be an opportunity for us to control the days that trash is picked up on these commercial properties, commercial residential?
Yeah, as part of if we pursued this, the RFP could stipulate the days of collection for them.
Okay. I guess I have this vision where
No Trash Friday?
well, no Trash Friday, that'd be amazing. But no, it's more, recently some items have come up on the block where I live. My neighbors across the street from me are on an alley, and they share that alley with apartment buildings on Imperial. And as soon as we switch trash, it's now the south side of the alley is very uniform. It's all collected on Thursdays. It's very nice. And then it's almost like it's separating the homeowners or those residential dwellers and the apartment dwellers, it's separating them even further. And from a community standpoint, it's just like, what, we can't have the nice new trash cans because we live in an apartment building? And so anything that we can do as policymakers to make every single person that lives in this town feel the same, I think would be good. So I guess I look forward to this conversation in 5 years, or talking to somebody sitting in my chair in 5 years.
But it wouldn't, today, those apartment dwellers could go to EDCO and contract with them and be part of the automated hauler, correct?
The multi-unit family properties can contact EDCO or any of the licensed haulers to determine what service is best for them, and they can choose what they would like to have serve their property.
Sorry, I got another one for you. This action, would this require those apartment buildings to provide green waste and recycling to their tenants? I mean, because all we're really saying is if you're picking up trash in this city, you need to provide to us these audited forms, correct? We're not really, because I know one of the big concerns and one of the public comments that we received was someone who used to live in a townhouse complex paying for just trash, and it bothered them that they weren't even offered recycling services.
The answer is yes, they need to provide all the services, and like on page 22, it's where it starts all the reporting. So in order to be compliant with your reporting, you have to provide the service.
But that's just the trash company, not the apartment building owner.
It's both. I mean, they're going to need to separate just like the residents. That's the point, is that, in fact, the businesses that have organics are going to be required to, if they have a certain amount of organics under the current law, new current law, they have to separate those out. So they actually, if you're like a restaurant or supermarket, potentially, if you generate enough organics, you have to have another cart for that, or bin for a business that size.
I think in the future, you might remember from my presentations, SB 1383 is the one that dives down into individuals being responsible for disposing of their organics and possibly being fined themselves, but we're not there yet.
Okay.
So this is just the first step in getting us toward the process of being able to potentially go to a franchise and to ensure that we're adhering to all the state laws.
Yes.
Don, do you have any questions? Chris, any questions?
No, I think that broadly this gives us a structure that it certainly doesn't handcuff us in the future about what other decisions we'd like to make, whether it's a franchise fee or not. Notably, this will curtail some of the Wild West atmosphere and give some rules to the road. So I have no objections.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve. Item 3.
It's an ordinance, so if
Oh,
I
boy.
could read that by title, and then you can introduce. An ordinance amending Title 5, Chapter 2 of the El Segundo Municipal Code to establish comprehensive regulations regarding solid waste management and establishing a permit process for and regulations governing providers of solid waste collection and transportation service to commercial premises and multifamily dwellings, with the revisions I read into the record earlier, is ready for introduction.
I'd like to introduce.
And this will be brought, this is an ordinance. So this will be brought back at your next regular council meeting on June 18th.
All right. So could we ask Drew to come back? We're moved to the consent agenda.
We got to bring him back, right?
Yeah. He's picking up trash.
Mr. Boyles. While we're waiting for him, did anybody see the chief carrying that Special Olympics torch yesterday?
No.
Greg told me we were in a meeting, and he said, Scott, go out there and see. And I ran out, and they were already passed. And so I went running down the street. Somebody encouraged me to run ahead of them. And I got up there just in time to get a really good photo of you holding the torch. So it was pretty neat. It was a nice little group of the police officers carrying the Special Olympic torch. It's really cool. I figured that would have filled all the time we needed until Drew got back.
But no. Tell another.
Tell another story. Well, Liverpool won the Champions League. That's exciting,
Yeah, they did.
right?
Where'd he go, Mashia?
Is he locked in?
You probably watched the Dodger game by now.
Here he comes, here he comes.
Yeah.
You locked Mashia out. So we're on the consent agendas.
All right, with the note from earlier that item 9 has already been covered through our special meeting, do we have any pulls for the consent agenda?
Item number 8 will be pulled for clarification from staff.
Okay. Any others?
Poll number 6.
Okay, number 6, number 8.
Any, Chris?
None from me.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve items 4, 5, 7, and that's it?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chris, are you an aye on that?
I am.
Thank you. 5-0. Okay, item, let's see. Item 6, thank you. Dr. Brand?
Yes, sir. So, looks like we've made progress here in reducing the cost for the Run for Education. Like I said at the last meeting, I feel that there shouldn't be any fees here, that all of them should be waived. It's such a great event and a great cause. This is definitely a step in the right direction, but I'd rather see us not charge that and help the school district and the people around it as most as we could. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brand. Do you have a motion to approve or any further comments?
I have no further comments.
Okay. I'll move approval of item 6.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Brand?
Aye.
Dr. Brand?
No.
Okay, 4-1. Thank you. All right, we're on to, so item 8 is just, what's the clarification there? Are you going to talk about it tonight, or? Okay, great.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. So on item number 8, one correction is in section B2. The position Principal Civil Engineer says the words "at will" in parentheses. We need to strike the words "at will" from that section. And then the final correction is on page 79 under section 4, 1B as in boy. The sentence reads, "All positions listed in section 1B and C above." The deletion is "and C" in parentheses. And that is the correction on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Serrano.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
5-0. That's it, right, for consent? Did we get them all? Okay, great, thank you. All right, City Manager, report?
Just briefly, Council, we are about 1 month away from opening City Hall every Friday, going from every other Friday to every Friday. We will get some public communication out later this month to make the public aware of that change in our schedule.
And our staff is pretty much already working every other, right? It's just a different staff?
Our City Hall, and we're talking about City Hall specifically. Our City Hall staff currently works every other Friday on a 980 schedule. They'll stay on a 980 schedule, but we'll alternate the staffing so that City Hall is open every Friday.
That's great, thank you. City Attorney?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
City Clerk?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
We have the item. You know
Do
what?
you want me to do that, or?
Well, we're thinking we'd like to put this back on the agenda for June 18th and address it then.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we need to
Thank
take
you.
action on that, or is that enough?
No, I'll just pull it for this evening
Okay.
and bring it back on the
Yeah.
18th.
Great,
Great.
thank you.
City Treasurer, we heard from Councilmember Pimentel. Anything to report?
Nothing.
Thank you. Councilmember Nickel?
I said this while you were gone, so I'll just repeat myself briefly. I thought what the police department did yesterday, carrying that Special Olympic torch, was pretty neat. A lot of people came out and lined the street on Main Street, and I'm sure you had a lot of applause along the way. But it's those little things, I think, that all add up to this killer community we live in.
Thank you, Scott. Councilmember Brand.
Right. I think it was great to see the new officers introduced at the beginning of the meeting this evening. We're making progress. And it's nice that we have our first lateral now. Looking forward to more of those results going up ahead. We get our marketing firm is working. Everything's working now. So we're making progress. There is a killer mural down in the lower level in the Sue Carter room at our public library. We had an event last week, Wednesday I think it was, to introduce it, meet the artist, and it was well attended and really changed that room. The room is transformed. It's a beautiful piece of work, and I do credit Kristen Dorsey with getting that on the wall, because she started the dialogue about the earliest El Segundo residents, and it's take a look. Next time you're over at the library, go down there and check it out. It's really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brand. Mayor Pro Tem Perstuck.
So last week I had the opportunity to attend the LA County Mayor's meeting in El Monte. It was great to, Mayor Eric Garcetti is doing a great job of bringing the mayors together to collaborate on what we as a combined unit can help in our cities, so we can work together to help our cities. The topic was education, so we had a lot of discussion about education and funding for education. And then I would like to wish everyone who's graduating in the next couple weeks, high school promotion from middle school, and all the people graduating from 5th grade, and even the kids coming from preschool. So congratulations to all those kids, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you, Carol. Well, I have an item under my name, but before I do, it's been a very productive couple weeks. So we had a lot of debate at the South Bay Council of Government board meetings and the steering committee about all the housing bills, which we're going to talk about tonight, some of them. And also I want to thank all the CERT attendees. I don't know how many showed up, Chief, but it looked like from the pictures I saw on social media, we had a great turnout for that. Thank you to all the community members that help us with emergency preparedness. To that end, we had a great tabletop exercise led by Randy Collins, who I don't see here. We had every department head in attendance. We had about, 50 people in the room, the entire city council, and we spent, 4 hours going through different exercises and what happens if in the event of an emergency, which is inevitable. And we'll be doing a lot more in that regard as we continue to prepare for disaster in the city. We had a great meeting with, thanks, Scott. We had a great meeting with Dr. Soon Chung, keeping up with some of the things that he's got going in the city. Lots more to come there. He's continuing to invest heavily in our city, and much more to come there. Great meeting with the new Freeform Futures Incorporated company. They've recently moved to El Segundo. They're going to be in Smoky Hollow, and they have proprietary 3D printing for metals for the aerospace industry. Another example of aerospace innovation happening at the smaller mid-sized business scale. And then interesting meeting today with a company that wants to reinvent air transport, short flight air transport using helicopters. And they're already having a lot of success out of Hawthorne Airport. So more to come on that. And Mayor Pro Tem and I had a great meeting with Second Order Effects, another company that's been around, 4 years, they said, in Smoky Hollow. You'd never know they were there. But they're doing some amazing things, developing technologies that can't even be talked about in public. Some of which we got a little bit of a preview, kind of. Not really. And so a lot of great stuff. And then CPR Saturday, thank you for doing that as well. I know that there was a great turnout for that.
And I have one more thing I meant
Yes,
to
ma'am.
also thank everyone for participating in Civic Day. We had our second Civic Day with the high school seniors from El Segundo High School. They came and it's their political science class, and they came and presented their proposals on updating the teen center, which was very good. We had 4 presentations. We had a pick. It was great to see the engagement of the youth. Dr. Brand and I participated in it. It was just great to see the insights and the engagement from our youth. And, you know, they came up with some really good ideas. I know Meredith and the team took a lot of notes. So we're hoping to, I know we as a council put some money aside for the teen center, so we're hoping to institute some of these ideas. And so when they come back from college next summer, hopefully some of these things will be completed.
Great. One last thing, there's a beach cleanup hosted by NRG and Kiwanis, the annual beach cleanup this Saturday at 0900, right? Did you confirm that? It's a great event. I know I'll be down there.
And a big barbecue afterward.
Great barbecue, always great food. And we picked up a ton of trash, no pun intended, last year. So please join us for that. All right, we have item 11, consideration and possible action to temporarily suspend El Segundo Municipal Code Section 7.6.8 to allow adults over 21 years of age to bring and consume alcohol at Library Park on the days of the summer concerts in the park events Sundays, June 16th, June 30th, July 14th, and July 28th, 2019 from 3 p.m. until 7 p.m. Fiscal impact none. The reason that this occurred to me, I've been thinking about it actually for a couple of years. Didn't really give it much thought before I was in council, but I remember going quite a bit. And I've been to the concerts in El Segundo, and I've been to the concerts in Manhattan Beach. And the reality is that there are already plenty of people drinking in the park at the one in El Segundo. And as I've said the same thing about enforcing dog rules at our parks, we should either enforce the rules or not have the rules or change the rules. So that's the intent here, is to acknowledge that it's already happening and that our residents and visitors can be responsible in enjoying an alcoholic beverage between 3 to 7 p.m. in the park. And I know in our staff report it talked about Manhattan Beach has been doing that for years, and by all accounts they're continuing to do so without any significant events. So that's why I introduced it.
And just for clarification, we're not talking about the sale of alcohol. It's just people bring their own alcohol for consumption.
Yes,
For personal
exactly.
consumption.
Yeah.
I'll move approval.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you want to, we can still discuss it.
No. I just found it very odd. I read this on my way out of town this weekend. I was lucky enough to be in Spain over the weekend for a soccer match, and I was in a square.
Wow.
And it was just, I was talking with the person that I was traveling with about how, like, look how amazing this is. Here's people drinking in public in a square, interacting with each other. They're not on their phones. They're not out causing trouble. This is just people interacting with other humans in an organized manner, and they're not abusing this right. And so I think it is so apropos, I guess you could say.
Lucky you being in Spain for a weekend.
I know.
Must be nice. Councilman Pimentel, we didn't hear your vote on that matter.
Yeah, that is an aye.
Okay, great. Thank you. 5-0 on that one. Next item, consideration and possible action to direct staff to prepare letters of opposition to various Assembly and Senate bills related to housing and accessory dwelling units. Fiscal impact, none. And I see Greg McLean from the Planning Department.
Mayor, Members Council, last Friday was the deadline for proposed legislation to move out of the House of Origin or get carried over to next year. So some legislation did not get carried over, but a number of bills did make it from their House of Origin and are moving forward in the legislative process. We felt it was appropriate now to ask the council to take action on a number of these, and there are quite a number related to housing. There are also a number of bills related to other issues that we can bring to your attention as well at future meetings. But we'll have Greg McLean, our planning manager, give you a brief summary of those bills that are still pending.
Thank you. I'm going to be reviewing 6 bills that are still pending. As Mr. Carpenter indicated, a number of bills didn't make it through the deadline. Some others died in committee. There were actually quite a bundle of them that we were tracking this year. So the first one I'm going to talk about is SB 330. So SB 330 does a number of things. One, it declares a statewide housing crisis and then sets maximum parking requirements at half a space for the following 5 years. There are other provisions. I didn't highlight them because they're not generally relevant to what's going on in El Segundo. This has already passed the Senate and it's been sent to the Assembly. The next one is AB 1279. This one gives HCD, which is the Housing and Community Development Department, the authority to designate high resource areas, and then permits up to 4 affordable units per lot in single family zones if they're in the HRAs. It's hard to tell, but it looks likely that we would be, at least a good chunk of the city would be in an HRA.
Greg, is that,
Yes.
I know there was one that was a coastal community, a bill that had a coastal community call out specifically, and one that had a job-rich.
Yeah, that was,
factor.
I
Is that a
believe.
different bill?
Yes, that was SB 50.
Do we know what the definition of this is then?
No, well, it's explained, but it wasn't clear enough to determine if we're going to be in, and it's going to be up to HCD to declare where these places will be. And they have something like till the end of
So
the
the regulatory agency actually determines that, not
Yes.
the okay,
Yeah.
that's scary.
This one also allows large multifamily lots to have higher densities for affordable units, and that kicks in at a quarter acre. This one also passed the Assembly and has been sent to the Senate. AB 1763. This one, probably more than the others, apply or may not apply to El Segundo, but it could. Currently, we have no density bonus projects in the city, but if we ever get one and somebody says, I want this to be 100% affordable, then the city would be required to come up with 4 incentives or concessions in negotiation with the applicants. So incentives would be things like fee waivers or reductions. Concessions would be development standard reductions or enhancements or something like that. Like, for example, reduction in parking. Although density bonus projects already get a reduction in parking. So the real interesting thing is that the density bonus would kick up to 80% of the units. So if you had a 100-unit project and the 100 of those units were affordable, you would get 80 additional units to build. So 180 it becomes. Currently, the density bonus laws cap at about 35%. So this is a very significant increase. This is also passed and sent to the Senate. Next one is AB 68. This one is regarding ADUs. It allows ADUs substantially within existing structures, and also allows a second junior ADU if the main ADU is attached. So on a single family home, if you had an ADU over the garage, say, you could also have a little bit of the inside of your existing house carved out as a second ADU. It also allows ADUs on multifamily lots, which would be requiring a change from our ordinance. This one says that multifamily units can be divided on the interior to make like 2 out of every one. Plus, you can have 2 additional ones if you can find the space for them, probably in the parking lot. Also, this one increases HCD's enforcement authority. It's not a really strong enforcement, but they are able to make findings based on their review of our ordinances, and then they would send that back to us, and we can either adopt an ordinance or it's a resolution stating that we are in compliance. I think that's kind of the end of it, or we'd have to make the changes according to their direction. This one's passed the Assembly and has been sent to the Senate. AB 881. This one clarifies that ADUs can be in existing garages. This is a provision that we saw in some others, but it had been dropped out. This one kind of more or less puts it right back in. It removes the owner occupancy restriction for 5 years. Our ordinance, as well as most other cities, say that either the main house or the ADU has to be occupied by the property owner, so this would take that away. This one passed the Assembly and has been sent to the Senate. This one has other provisions, but they're not strictly relevant to El Segundo. And the last one I wanted to go over was SB 13. This one's probably the most important one. It removes the requirements to replace parking when garages are converted. It also removes the owner occupancy requirement. It sets a limit on impact fees for ADUs. So ADUs that are under 850 square feet would have no impact fees, and those that are larger would pay 25% of the normal impact fees. It also expands HDC's authority. I believe this is the one that even takes it a step further and says that they can refer these to the Attorney General if we refuse to make the changes that they indicate. This one has passed the Senate and it's been sent to the Assembly.
If I just might add on this one, a letter's already been prepared. This was brought forward to the council about a month ago, and so there's a letter that's already been prepared, and I think it's gone for the mayor's signature, and I believe it's gone out. This is a really interesting bill in that, and you read it with the other ones, and there's some overlap, but it actually is incentivizing conversion of garages because you can't require the parking spaces to be replaced, whereas if someone builds a new structure and they're not within 500 feet of a transit stop, they can be required to build a parking space. So it's internally very inconsistent. The other issue with it that, and it's also, there's a provision in this bill and one of the prior ones that Greg was discussing, and that is that which encourages bootleg units, because if there are health and safety conditions, and it doesn't define exactly which health building code violations, we could be prevented, and the years keep changing. It was 10, I think it's 5 now. We could be prevented from enforcing the building code regulations on units for up to 5 years. And it says if it's a health and safety concern. Well, the whole building code is about health and safety concerns, so it's very, again, confusing. And so we've addressed all those issues in the letter to Sacramento, explaining those, what we can think are inconsistencies and what will be a real potential problem for our building inspectors to determine, you know, at what point is it a life safety problem or not.
Thank you for the clarification. There are, as I mentioned, there are provisions in all of these bills that I didn't have. I could have filled a page for this one, for example. I just hit the most egregious highlights, I thought. One other consideration is that all of these bills have been sent to the other house. They go into committees over there. They will be amended further. Each of these have been amended at least 3 times, I believe, by various committees. And then, as I understand it, there will be a conference committee. So we still have time to see what the final outcome will be. As a matter of fact, at least 2 of these bills have changed their status or changed major provisions since I wrote the staff report last week and making the presentation today. So we're still dealing with a little bit of a moving target. Anyway, that concludes the report on these. Our recommendation is to direct staff to prepare letters of opposition or for any or all of the identified pending legislation, and if desired, provide guidance on the nature of that opposition.
Thanks, Dr. Brand. Did you have he's been waiting.
Yeah, do you know if the League of California Cities has taken a position on these measures?
At least SB 13, I believe they have. I can confirm that if you give me a moment.
We might want to check that, and they could probably provide content for letters.
Oh, I take that back. You know, they did, because what my first point of research was to go over their recommendations.
Yeah.
And all of these were in that list.
And the COG also supported opposing.
Right.
The COG is opposed to at least one of these
Yeah.
that I saw.
Well, we'll get some
So,
good wording.
so in addition to writing the letters, which, you know, I'm for, is there a way we can start educating our residents on letting them know this is the type of bills that are being proposed in our government, so that they're aware, so that they're educated on this is the direction that our government's going in? Because I feel that there's a lot of people in town that have no idea, and not just our town, in many towns, that have no idea that this type of discussion is taking place, and all of a sudden it's going to happen, and everyone's going to be in shock. So is there any way, you know, one of our things is about being transparent, one of our goals, and I think if we could draft a letter or draft some type of communication, thank you, that's a press release that really educates our residents, and do it from a factual standpoint to say, these are the type of laws that are being drafted in our current state government. You should be aware of them, you know, and then they can make educated decisions when they go to the voting ballot.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Good? Everyone's good? Okay. Someone like to make a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Public communications. Now is the time and place. Public communications. Tim?
Not here.
Okay, we're going to close public communications. And before, we're going to actually continue back into closed session. as a council. Chris will join us on the phone, but before we do, unless, did you have something to add?
I just wanted to thank Greg for putting all this together. I know it's a lot of work, and I just
Thanks,
really
Greg.
want to thank you for being on top of it, because you've been watching these bills for a long time, and I know it's something, it's a bit of a moving target, and thank you for doing that.
And
Thanks,
Mayor,
Greg.
if I might, based upon the council's discussion earlier, the intent is to continue this regular meeting, adjourn this regular meeting to tomorrow at 2 o'clock.
No,
And-
actually, we're going to go back to close now.
Instead
Okay.
of tomorrow.
Now, since
Instead
we're
of
out
tomorrow.
so
Thank you.
relatively
Yeah.
early
All right,
sunset.
never mind.
in our lives.
Thank you, though. Thank you. That was the original intent.
We go home this early, we got a lot to explain.
That's right. So this evening, on a somber note, we are adjourning in honor of the 12 that tragically lost their lives in Virginia Beach, many of which were public works employees. So if we could just take a moment of silence before we adjourn or continue to close, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.